On this episode of Locked On Angels, with a day off yesterday, we decided to take some time and pause and take a closer look at our favorite team. And we asked one big question: why do they play up to the good teams and play down to the bad teams? One player gave us an answer, and we're going to share that today. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts, just like Nick the 18 did, 888 Watt did, Trig Star did, Skinny Dog is my dog. Bad. He gave us a review, and then the Greatest 27 also gave us a 5-star review. And so if you'd like to give us 5 stars, we'd appreciate that. 5 stars and some good words. Super thankful for that. And if you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe, become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube, leave a comment. One of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And this episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. New customers, you can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins.
Thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
It's our 4th season as a host of Locked On Angels, talking Angels baseball with you Monday through Friday, every single weekday. On today's show, the Angels lead the league in this one category, and it's very surprising considering all the issues they've had with this position in years past. Well, we'll tell you about that in segment 2. And we're asking, how in the world is this team 500? You know, they're one game under 500.
Asking just that way, too. How in the world?
How in the world? We're going to get into that in segment 3. But first, Mike, why do the Halos play up to good teams and down to the bad? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, entering today, our Halos are 20-20 against teams 500 or better. But against teams under 500, our Halos are 21-22. Now, that doesn't sound too bad at first glance, but if you stop and you get out and you look around, you start to realize that that's not great at all. Brent McGuire, Locked On Hall of Famer, tweeted this. He said, "The Angels are exceeding expectations this season, but it's hard to not look at some of the series that they've lost at home. They've lost 4 series against Pittsburgh, Baltimore, Miami, and Washington at home, going 4-8 in those games. And in the case of the Nats, they hadn't won a series in nearly a month, and they lost the series this last weekend. Now, one of our everydayers said the Nats are kind of like the Angels, right? They're scrappy and they're young, trying to figure some things out. And he's right. However, you still got to beat the Nationals. You can't, we're supposed to be better than them, right? Now, in addition to that, the Angels have played the O's, the Twins, the Rangers, Marlins, Nationals, and Pirates, and they are a combined 55 games under 500 this season. And our favorite team has lost every series against them with a combined record of 4-17 against all of them, John. So that's 2 words. Pathetic, right? Like that's terrible. And I can't believe that we haven't been able to beat some of these bad teams. And of course, we've had those conversations on this show ad nauseum.
Yeah, absolutely. This means if they had just won two of those games, they'd be sitting above 500 right now. So why is it that they struggle against the bad teams and play up to the good teams? Logan O'Hoppe was asked this question by Erica Weston on the TV side after the Yankees series. This is the one where they took 3 of 4 against the Yankees, and he said, the atmosphere really helps us focus. The large crowds, the intensity, and the playoff atmosphere really help us focus on what we need to do. So, question, Michael, is that a sign of a lack of baseball maturity?
I think it's a lack of confidence. I think that they go into these games against these really good teams, and the expectation, according to fans that you see on social media that are even Angels fans, are like, nah, this is going to be bad, right? Like, I mean, if you look at social media right now, Angel fans are saying, oh man, July is going to be bad. Well, not according to the numbers, because the Angels play up to the 500 teams, or that 500 or better. If they're under 500, there's a problem there, and we'll get into that in just a
I'm
moment.
seeing the opposite on Angels social media. It's, we got tons of tough teams in July. We're going to play really well.
Who are you following? I need to follow some of those people.
Following
right?
the fun people. Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
absolutely. So here's the reality, John. I just think it probably is confidence. I think they walk into these games and the expectation is, they're the better team. And so we're just gonna play like we can play and play within our means, right? Within our talent. And I think they go in there confident in who they are and they play really well. But then they play these bad teams or down teams. And I think that there's an expectation of we should beat them. And maybe they're a bit tight, a bit nervous. Maybe they lack a bit of confidence. And maybe that's it. Maybe it's not confidence. Maybe it's just nervousness. Like, we're supposed to beat this team. We're supposed to be really good against this team, right? Ron Wash said last year, all season long, that he wouldn't have some of his young players hit in the lineup in key moments at key spots because they get really nervous. They grip the bat too tight. They're shaky at the plate. They're swinging at bad pitches, right? And we've seen some improvement this season from those young players. However, I wonder if that still kind of reverberates through this organization with some of the young players. I wonder if there's a nervousness, there's a bit of anxiety, there's a bit of like, well, we should do this, and then going out there and they're pressing, they're pushing too hard. So I think it might be a combination of a lot of things, but what do you think?
I just think that the playoff atmosphere idea is kind of silly because we're all 3 games close to a sellout this weekend against the Nationals. And look, it's the Nationals, so it's kind of surprising that the Angels would be able to do that and sell that many tickets. But at the same time, the team is better than they've been in quite some time. And that's not saying much considering where they've been and where they are now, 1 game under 500. But entering the series, they were at 500. You were hoping that they could walk away with a series win and get past that 500 mark. And so the atmosphere I thought was great. And they brought out a lot of people because of the promotions and Christmas in June. So they had the people in the stands, Mike. It's just interesting to me that, the answer is, well, it's a playoff atmosphere. It feels good. There's a lot of energy. But at the same time, you had that this past weekend. And I think that's a point that needs to be made as well.
I think I'd like to address what you just said there because you mentioned they are better than they have been in years past. I think it's important to differentiate between the teams in years past versus the team that we have now. I think this team is a 2-year team. I think they were year 1 last year, right? Batman year 1 and then Batman year 2, right? And so last year was year 1 and this is year 2. So if you compare this team to 3 years ago or 4 years ago or even 5 years ago, I don't think it's an apples to apples comparison.
No, not at all.
Right. And so this team is really developed. So I think we can at least pause for a moment and acknowledge they are better than they were last year. They do have some better players, better veterans, at least on the pitching staff. The younger players are stepping up. Zach Neto is a completely different player than he was just last year. Nolan Shonowell, of course, is completely different. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that. However, you're right. The atmosphere was great this weekend, right? Yeah. The atmosphere was fun this weekend. And so I wonder if it's more just about the pinstripes or if it's more about Dodger blue and the reputation they have. And it's why the Angels are we're going to go get them. We're going to be David, they're Goliath, and we're going to take them down.
Let's not forget that the Yankees came to town and beat up the Angels, right? And then they were able to answer back in New York. The Astros, they have the Angels number this season and they're a good team. So you mentioned apples to apples. I don't think it's apples to apples with that either. They're definitely playing, tough games against tough teams. But to walk away with 3 at Dodger Stadium, to walk away with 3 in Yankee Stadium, that's pretty significant, right?
It is. It feels like the teams that they are supposed to play well against and actually can move up in the rankings, move up in the standings in the AL West, they fail against. If they didn't do good against the Yanks or the Dodgers, that would be frustrating. But I don't know if I'm going to say this out loud. I don't know if I fully believe it, but I think I would trade a Yankees 3 out of 4 and take 3 of 4 or 2 of 3 from the Astros in the first 2 series, right? Because obviously the Yankee series was great. The Dodgers series was great, but it feels like they just don't play well against the teams they really need to play well against. And maybe that's, as you dig a little bit deeper, maybe that's what it is. It becomes more of a oh, we really have to do well against this team, and we're not doing well against that team. We can get over 500 and be a game over 500 by the end of the weekend. Oh man, now we're a game under 500, and it was a team that we shouldn't have lost to. Maybe that's the mindset that just needs to be pivoted a little bit.
So let's take a look at what's coming up, because if they're going to keep this tradition of playing up to good teams and down to bad teams, they start a series against the Braves in Atlanta tonight. The Braves are 38-45, coming off a series loss to the Phillies. They haven't won a series in almost 2 weeks. The record isn't great, but they're a pretty good team when they put it all together, and things have started to kind of turn around for them. The Angels then go to Toronto, where the Blue Jays are now 46-38. They're just 2 games behind the Yankees for first place. Talk about coming all the way back. The Angels actually took 2 or 3 of them from them back in May of this year. Are they going to play up to the Jays? That's something that they're going to have to consider. I mean, they're going to the Rogers Center. That's going to be interesting atmosphere, good atmosphere. By the way, the Angels are 1 game under 500 on the road. That's not as bad as it could be, considering how difficult road games can be. And then the Angels finished the first half at home against Texas. The Rangers swept them in Arlington back in April. And then the Diamondbacks come to town, and they sit 1 game under 500 as of right now. So as we move forward, it's going to be interesting to watch those series and consider where this team stands before the All-Star break, because they do have some tough teams ahead who are up in the standings. And then, the Rangers have kind of fallen back down to earth after, having a decent start, but they are just not the Rangers that they were 2 years ago. That's for sure. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of these things play out. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, the Angels lead the league in one category that's really surprising, considering all the issues they've had at this position in years past. What is it? We're going to talk about it coming right up.
Everydayers, if you haven't yet, it's time to download Monarch Money. They're your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. And let's be honest, you have no control over your finances. You need a little bit of help. That's why Monarch Money is here. It's not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. Get to track all of your accounts, investments, all of your spending in one place. You're going to stop managing your money, and you can start building wealth. And those money conversations with those that you love, it's going to go a whole lot smoother with Monarch Money. Again, track those shared accounts, personal accounts. You can set goals, get on the same page, not be stressed out. There's enough to be stressed out. Don't need to be stressed out about money. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our promo code LOCKEDONMLB when you go to monarchmoney.com. You're going to get 50% off your first year. Again, monarchmoney.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Mike, we're getting into an interesting conversation here, and that is this. The Halos are the only pitching staff in baseball to have the season opening rotation make every start this season. They came into this year with Kikuchi and Anderson and Hendricks, Kohanowitz, and wait, who am I missing? I just said 4, I think.
You said Anderson, Kikuchi, Hendricks, Soriano. You didn't say Soriano.
Soriano, there you go. Yeah.
It's like ABCs, right? You have to say it out loud.
Yeah, exactly. 1, 2, 3. I think we got to add this up in my head.
Yeah.
But it's really significant because this is a team record for most games to begin a season using no more than 5 starters, 83 games, and that surpasses the mark of 80 games set in 1999. There's just one team behind the Angels, and that's the Tampa Bay Rays, who have just used 6 pitchers to start their season. Travis d'Arnaud said having the same 5 guys is helpful for him and Logan O'Hoppe because it allows them to build camaraderie and chemistry. He said getting games started is one of the most valuable things you could do over a year, especially when you're getting 30 to 35 starts. For everyone to not miss one and just keep going every 5th day, especially when things aren't going well, I think that's when you learn the most, regardless of the good or the bad.
It hasn't always been good, obviously, especially if you're an everydayer. You've seen this. For example, Jack Kohanowitz has a .644 earned run average over his last 8 starts, only struck out 61 batters in 86 innings, while opponents have a .289 batting average against him this season. Ray Montgomery, though, said knowing that Kohanowitz will be out there every 5th day has allowed him to learn from his failure and adjust to the big league environment. Ray Montgomery said, He believes that the consistent time on the mound is going to help Kohanowitz grow on the mental side of things. And the reason why he believes that, John, is because of the guy that we forgot about, Jose Soriano. Soriano has a 3.99 earned run average, 17 starts this season. 4 of his last 6 starts, he's allowed 1 run or fewer. And in the difficult moments when he gave up like 8 runs in 4 innings last Friday, he said this: I just keep my head up because I know I'm going to be back out there in 5 days. Love that mindset. He also said it helps him prepare after a less than ideal appearance. He can say, he said, I just don't get frustrated with those kinds of outings. I just keep working hard, and I go out there to set up for a big outing, and I'm almost erasing what happened in the past because I know I got to go out there with a fresh mind, fresh heart. Something Chris Cortez said to us that I loved. He's like, I just got to flush that away. I got to wipe that away, and I just got to get the next batter. And same thing, it sounds like with Soriano. He's like, bad start, just got to let it go. Can't fix it, can't solve it. What I can do is be better, and I'm going to be better in my next start.
Kyle Hendricks said that knowing your turn is coming up really helps with confidence, because you can see that with guys like Jack Kohanowitz and Jose Soriano. They're just learning how to go about their routine. When they need what they need in between starts, it changes depending on how you feel, what you're working on from your last start. So just to see all the adjustments that they're making is truly how you learn about yourself. Hendricks added that this consistency is going to help Kohanowitz and Soriano later in their career. So somebody who knows what they're talking about, and Kyle Hendricks really showing and demonstrating and explaining how this is a helpful way for the Angels to develop their starting pitching by just trusting them to go out there every 5th day.
Now, John, you mentioned something on yesterday's show that I want to circle back on as we talk about the starting rotation. Soriano had a career high 113 innings last year before they shut him down because of an arm injury. He currently has 97 innings pitched. So that's something I think we need to pay attention to. Jack Kohanowitz has a career high 86 innings pitched already this season, just 2 seasons in, right? Tyler Anderson, he pitched a career high 179 innings last year. He's at 85 so far this season. And then Kikuchi has pitched a career high 175 innings last year. He's at 96 so far this season. And then Kyle Hendricks is at 87 so far, and he threw 130 innings last year. So a couple questions that I would love for us to discuss. Let me fire this one at you. Would it be reasonable to assume that we're going to see some sort of spot starter after the All-Star break, maybe in August? Or do you think that they're going to continue to run the same 5 guys out there?
I think they're going to run the same 5 guys out there unless somebody gets hurt or somebody gets traded, Mike. And when you talk about trades, you can talk about Tyler Anderson or possibly even Kyle Hendricks. Now, I don't know that the market is clamoring for them, but I know I had to laugh because last year when I wrote my article for our Substack, our Super Halo Bros Substack, I did an article about the teams that traded for other players that weren't Angels. And one of them was Tyler Anderson not being traded to the Mets because they traded for Paul Blackburn of the A's at the time. And now I look at that now and I go, gee, I bet the Mets would really appreciate having Tyler Anderson on their team right now, considering they have no starters who are healthy. And Tyler Anderson makes all of his starts, even though they're not always great. At least you can rely on him to go out there for you. So I say that because, again, nobody's clamoring for guys like Anderson or Hendricks, but they could very well get traded. And then we'd start to see the Angels give some of those starts to maybe a Sam Aldeguerri. I know that Dana's kind of dealing with an injury right now. I know Silseth's kind of working through something. So I don't know who we might expect to come up in their stead. But at the same time, you could also turn to Reed Detmers, get him stretched out to become a starter again, unless he sticks in the bullpen and maintains that confidence that he's been having all season long. After the blow-ups that he had out of the bullpen. But all of that to say, I don't know that we'll get spot starts. And I also don't think we're going to be going to the Zach Plesac and the Johnny Cuetos of the world, right? And the guys that, were up for a minute just to give us some innings and then send them back down. They had to do that last year because they had injuries. So I'm not sure how quickly they're going to burn through this good thing that they have unless there's an injury. When it comes to the innings pitched and guys like Soriano and Jack Kohanowitz hitting near career highs at this point, I mentioned, it's something we need to pay attention to with Soriano,
Yeah.
because if the velo was down in that last start, that could be a warm-up thing. That could be anything. But
Sure.
if it continues to be down, you might start to think, it could be that he's really reaching that limit that he's never really gotten to before. And the only difference is that Soriano started this year as a starter. He was expected to be in the rotation. Last year, they were in the middle of that conversion from reliever to starter. And so that was a totally different mindset. So I'm sure he's coming into this year knowing that, hey, I got to be expected to go the full season. And with Kohanowitz, look, he made the team, and he was always going to be a starter, whether that was with the Angels or down in AA or AAA, right? And so he's got to be prepared to handle that workload. But Mike, this is why you have Hendricks and Anderson and Kikuchi in the rotation, because then you do get the same 5 starters all season long. Then you do get guys who have reached and potentially could reach 180 innings in a season. And that way you're not using 36 different pitchers. Sam Blum loves to tweet about how many position players and pitchers the Angels burn through in a particular season. But Sam, I haven't seen anything about the starting rotation this year, my friend. So better get on that, my friend. But Mike, question is the bullpen moves that Ray Montgomery has been making. You know, he's been going to the bullpen pretty quickly to save the starters from themselves in these starts. Is this also an effort to save them down the road when it comes to the home stretch of this season? What do you think?
I hope not, because then that means that he's not coaching for that game. It means that he's coaching for, the next game and the game after that. And the one complaint I've had on this show with Ron Washington is stop waving the white flag and put all the guys that you need in right now to win this game and win this game only, right? And if that puts you in a weird position on Sunday, deal with it on Sunday. Then make a move. Option somebody. I know the Angels optioned Scott Kingery yesterday. And so that if you have flexibility, then you need to do that. However, if you're managing for down the line, I think it's going to cost you in games that you're having right now. And we as Angel fans know, like, these games matter. These games right now, they matter, because
especially when you lose to 500 or less teams, right?
They matter right now because they impact what happens down the line. And us being so close with the Mariners and being in that third wild card run, if the Angels are going to make a run for that, then they have to focus on this game to game. And they also have to focus on series to series. So I don't have an expectation for them when it comes to Atlanta and then Toronto, and then they're playing the Mets later, and like just win 2 out of 3. You win 2 out of 3, you're going to find yourself over 500, and you're going to control your own destiny. And that's what the Angels need to focus on. And Ray Montgomery can help that by managing game to game and not thinking about, like, well, in August or September, we're really going to need, unless there's an injury, right? Unless there's a tension in his elbow. I think they just got to go. I think you got to say, I'm bringing this guy in, this guy in, and this guy. What are you going to do Sunday? Oh, we'll figure that out when we get there, because right now we got to win this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can't be thinking about August and September when you're not even sure what they're going to do at the trade deadline, right? Because there's so much time between now and then, and it's only a month, but it's a long month, and there's a lot of games to be played here. And so really, if you want to be in a position to have those guys down the stretch, well, you got to be in contention. And so you really have to focus on game to game and make sure you're picking up wins in these dog days of summer when they really matter.
Everydayers, I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, and I love this app because it keeps everything fresh. They have daily promotions, new daily promotions every single day, and it makes it really fun to bet. You can use it, and you get fast payouts, and you can even make those regular season dog days of summer games, watching baseball or whatever it is that you're watching. You can make a must-watch event, whether you're placing a same-game parlay or you're watching your bet right into the 9th inning. FanDuel makes it really easy to get in on all of the action. And if you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Open the app or go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started.
Mike, last week when we did our Fan Mail Friday, I mentioned making a trade for somebody like Xavier Woods of the Marlins. It's something I would do if the Angels were going to buy somebody. I brought up some stats that weren't too good for the Halos and why I think he would be a good fit for them. But when I brought up those stats, you said, how is this team 500? And you said it sarcastically, but I think it's
Yeah.
a good question. So I thought it'd be an interesting exercise to dig into the numbers and try to see how we can figure out why this team is a 500 team and where they're at right now. Obviously, they're one game under 500 today, but in general, let's just say 500 team. But let's ask the question here. How did they get here? Letting those days go by, baby. So, Mike, how about a little luck? There's a term called the Pythagorean win and loss record. Essentially, it uses run differential to determine what a team's true win and loss record should be. The Angels have a negative run differential. They've scored 359 runs, but they've given up 408 runs. So the Angels have been outscored by 49 runs in total across the whole season, across all of their games, hence a negative 49 run differential. Now, according to the Pythagorean win and loss record, the Angels should be, ready for this? 37-46, 9 games under 500. So basically, purely based on the runs allowed versus the runs scored, they should have a losing record, worse than 41-42. That would indicate that they've been somewhat lucky this season. But on that note, Michael, why don't you tell us about a little unluck, quote unquote?
I'm glad you read that first part because Pythagorean for a dyslexic person, I was freaking out.
I even tried to put the pronunciation.
It didn't help. My mind was not picking it up. I'm glad you took that. So thank you for that. How about a little unluck, John? The Angels team batting average is 229. It's good for 26th in baseball. The entire league's batting average is 245. And wouldn't you know it, the Angels' expected batting average is 246. So right around 1 point ahead of league average. Now, remember, expected batting average measures the quality of contact against similar balls in play with the same kind of contact. So essentially, the Angels' batting average is under what it, quote unquote, should be, which is 17 points higher than it is. So the Angels' quality of contact is better than the numbers that they're putting up, meaning they've been a little unlucky when it comes to getting hits to land where they need to land. And if we take this unluck a step further, John, let's take a look at their WOBA. You're the fan of WOBA on here, so why don't you take it?
Yeah, WOBA is the weighted on base average. It kind of gives a score to the way a hitter gets on base. So, a walk is scored less than a triple, but it's still a positive for a player's WOBA. Whereas on base percentage tells you how often a player gets on base, but it doesn't tell you how they're doing it. So WOBA is kind of a smarter, more detailed on base percentage since it gives value to the way that they get on base. So having said all that, the Angels team WOBA right now is 308, while the league average is 314. But the Angels expected WOBA, 328. Expected WOBA predicts what a hitter's WOBA should be based on the quality of contact, launch angle, exit velocity, whether the ball was hit against some defensive shading or bad defense. It helps remove luck from the equation. If a hitter's WOBA is much lower than their expected WOBA, it probably means that they've been unlucky. They've hit into bad defensive positioning and have unusually bad outcomes on similar contacts. So the Angels have had unusually bad outcomes. In fact, 20 points less of unusually bad outcomes to be exact. So, Mike, the stats that got you to say, how was this team 500 last week were these. Second worst K percentage at 26.3%. Third worst walk rate at 7.4%. But have things changed in that regard for these Angels?
Yeah, so let's take a look at June. Right now, they have a 25% K rate and an 8.4% walk rate.
That was in the month of June.
In May, 27.3 K rate and a 7.6% walk rate. So they're better, almost 2 points better in June over May when it comes to the K rate, and almost 1 point better in the walk rate from May to June. Let's go back to March and April. In March and April, they were striking out at a 26.6%, and they were walking at a 6.2%. So in the month of June, things did get slightly better with those rates.
Yeah. So how have the Angels been able to be 500 with those kinds of results? Still not great, but it is an improvement over where they've been in terms of walk rate and K rate. It's because, Mike, when they aren't striking out, they're actually making great contact.
Hmm.
In fact, the Angels only sit behind the Yankees in barrel percentage with 11.2% barrel rate. So remember, barrels are considered to be the best kind of contact. Something hit at 98 miles an hour plus at a launch angle between 26 and 30 degrees. That's a barrel rate. Now, the reason barrels are considered the best kind of contact is because more often than not, they result in line drives, extra base hits, and home runs. So let's take it one step further, if you will. Let's talk WOBA. I'm throwing all kinds of terms
Like
at you.
Comic Con? Is that
Kind of,
90s
yeah.
con?
Oh, that'd be a fun baseball event. WOBA. Let's go. So WOBA is WOBA, what we talked about earlier, weighted
Mhm.
on base average, but only on contact, hence the con, right? So it removes strikeouts and walks completely from the equation. So the Angels WOBA is 382. That's good for fifth in the league behind the Yankees, the Dodgers, Tigers, and Red Sox. Those are some good teams to be
Mhm.
near. But Mike, their expected WOBA 414, just behind
Wow.
the Dodgers and the Yankees. So the Angels, when they make contact, have really good quality contact, and their WOBA is good for fifth in the league. But remember the luck/unluck that we mentioned earlier? Well, if you took luck out of the equation, they would be at 414. But, sometimes you hit a line drive right at Matt Chapman, and he's a really good third baseman, right? And most guys don't make that play, but he does. That's the kind of luck that we're talking about here.
Hmm.
And so when you think about it that way, the Angels, again, are making great quality contact when they make contact. Remember, the walk rate, the strikeout rate, not great. But when they do make contact, their whiff rate sucks, right? Actually, they're actually kind of league average in that. So again, when they make good quality contact, they actually should have really good results. So again, it's a little bit of luck, a little bit of unluck, half and half, 50-50. In other words, Michael,
500.
500. You nailed it.
Yeah.
So the Angels' quality of contact should mean that their offense is better than it's been, but the strikeouts, the lack of walks, kind of hold them back from reaching their full potential. And then all of that to say, this has just been about offense. So I think it would be a fun idea at some point this week to revisit this conversation with the pitching at a later date on a later show sometime this week. So again, this is just the offensive side of things of how are they 500 offense edition, and we'll do how are they 500 pitching edition later on this week.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB Game Night. You can find Game Night on the Locked On MLB YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and connect with Mike and I on Twitter and Instagram at Super Halo Bros. Mike, what do we have on deck for Wednesday's show?
Well, Louis Rengifo entering tonight's game, he's been great the last 16 games.
Yeah.
But there's a reason, John.
Ooh.
And I think the reason isn't something that he's done. It's something that happened. And so I'm going to bring that argument to you tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
And the reason is you? Is that it?
No, not me.
No, it's not you. Okay. Awesome. All right, friends. Thank you for being here. If you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, get in the comments section. We'd love to hear from you. Until tomorrow's show, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Wednesday.
And the reason is
you. My goodness.